The world of Lumerus had always been a jewel within the Imperium's vast domain, not glorious, not mighty, not a shrine world or fortress world, but steady, reliable, loyal. A single blue-white star warmed its surface. Massive oceans glimmered like liquid cerulean. Forests sprawled across continents like emerald scars, and its hive cities reached for the heavens, each one crowned with golden cathedrals that glowed in the night. To the Imperium, this was enough. A world that produced food, weapons, and tithes. A world that obeyed. A world that never asked questions. That was why, for nearly 8,000 years, Lumerus had known peace, at least the type of peace that could exist in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. But peace is just the silence before the storm. And on Lumerus, the storm had already begun long before anyone realized it. 2. The golden age that never was on the surface. Life on Lumerus went through familiar rhythms. In the spire of Hive Helios, nobles attended feasts, traded artifacts, gossiped about distant governors, and prayed to the emperor without understanding what they prayed for. In the mid-hive, manufactoria workers toiled in endless shifts, each day identical to the one before. In the underhive, gangers fought over food, water, and ammunition, but across all levels, rich and poor, noble and criminal, priest and soldier, there was a shared belief Lumerus would endure. Lumerus would always endure. It had resisted Xeno's raids. It had survived warp storms that ravaged nearby systems. It had weathered plagues, heresies, and failed rebellions. A world with 8,000 years of survival might be forgiven for believing it was immune to true catastrophe, but the servants of the emperor had a saying: complacency kills worlds faster than any invasion, and Lumerus had grown very complacent indeed. 3. The First Omen. Whispers from the warp first to sense the coming doom were the astropaths every day. In the towering astropathic choir spire, robed psychers knelt in a circle of polished black stone, their minds stretched across the sea of souls, receiving and transmitting Imperial messages. On the morning of the fall, the choir began chanting as usual, but something was wrong. Their voices trembled, their hands shook, sweat poured from their brows. They felt something moving in the warp. A shadow, a hunger, a coldness that bit deeper than any winter. Then one by one, they collapsed. Some screamed. Some clawed at their faces. Some went silent to silent. The choir mistress, blind eyes glowing faintly with psychic fire, raised her hand to stop them, but the warp had already taken its toll. 40 astropaths died in a single hour. Those who survived spoke in cracked, trembling voices. The Astronomicon dims, the Emperor's light, fading. Something is coming. When the report reached the planetary governor, he dismissed it as hysteria. Astropaths had died before. The warp was dangerous. This was nothing new. But the choir mistress knew the truth. She felt it in her bones. The Emperor's beacon had not simply dimmed, it had blinked. IV. The second omen, a failed dawn the very next day. The sun did not rise on time. At first, no one noticed. Delays in sunrise were rare but not unheard of, especially during seasonal dust storms. But then the delay became longer. 5 minutes, 10, 15. Communities across the equatorial region looked to the horizon. Confusion. Workers paused at manufactoria gates. Children pointed from rooftops. Priests muttered uncertain prayers. The planetary governor contacted the Departamento Meteorologica, explained this anomaly. A terrified scientist replied, "Governor, there should be sunlight. We are not experiencing a storm. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in the upper atmosphere." Then why was the world still dark? The answer arrived in the form of a chilling scream from one of the astropathic deputies. The heavens are changing. The third omen, stars that vanish in the third night. Astronomers across the planet panicked because the stars were disappearing, one by one, not flickering, not obscured by pollution, not fading. Simply gone, blacked out. Whole constellations vanished as if devoured by a monstrous void. Astronomers checked their instruments. They calibrated scanners. They stared through the lenses until their eyes burned. The result was the same. the stars were dying. By the hour, rumors spread across the Hive cities like wildfire. The Emperor has abandoned us. The angels of death are coming. The warp is swallowing the sky. The ecclesiarchy responded with emergency sermons. Priests shouted, "Repent. The end times are upon Lumeris." Crowds gathered in the streets, weeping, praying, panicking. But the worst was yet to come. Much worse. Vi, the fourth omen. Silence from Spacilumeris tried to contact nearby systems. No. Response. Then long-range Vox rays. Failed. Then deep space radar collapsed. Even astropathic. Messages dissolved into static and broken. Screams. The Imperium's golden rule was simple. A world cut off from the Emperor is already dying. But still, officials tried to maintain order. The governor broadcast a message. Remain calm. This is a temporary disturbance. No one believed him. In the Underhive, gangs stocked ammunition. Merchants hoarded food. Families moved underground. The sky darkened hour by hour. Even the sun seemed dimmer. Its once blazing light swallowed by an unnatural veil. A planetary cold began creeping across the land. Something was drawing nearer. Something. VASTVII, the fifth omen. The sky tears open. 3 days after the first astropath died, the sky ruptured. Not a storm. Not a meteor. Not a warp anomaly. Something pushed through the atmosphere. A shape. A shadow. A colossal silhouette so massive it blotted out the entire eastern horizon. Sirens wailed across Hive Helios. People poured into the streets, staring upward in terror. Children clung to parents. Scribes collapsed in prayer. Soldiers froze in horror. The sky at last gave up its secret. A titanic warship drifted through the clouds. But it was not an Imperial vessel. Its hull was covered in black, shifting patterns. Its engines burned with cold, unnatural fire, and its weight carried the screams of the damned. Lights across the Hive flickered and died. Children fainted. Dogs howled. Birds fell dead from the sky. The warp shadow had arrived. Lumeris was no longer a peaceful world. It was prey, and the hunter had found it. 8. The sixth omen. The all-seeing night ship passed overhead slowly, deliberately, like a predator savoring the moment before striking. As it did, the sun vanished. Completely. Instantly. Daytime turned to absolute night. Not darkness. A void. Lights failed. Generators sputtered. Whole cities were swallowed by pure black. People screamed as the world they had known died in a single moment. And in that moment of eternal night, everyone from Hive nobles to Underhive orphans understood a single, horrific truth. This was no eclipse. This was no storm. This was not natural. This was an attack. The night itself had come for them. The final moments of peace in the governor's palace. Alarms blared. A dozen officials shouted conflicting reports. An inquisitorial seal flashed across a Vox screen. A lone astropath, half-blind, trembling, skin burned, staggered into the chamber. Her voice was a whisper, cracked and broken. "It's too late." The governor grabbed her shoulders. "What is coming? Speak." The astropath's eyes rolled back. She exhaled a final breath. A single phrase escaped her lips. "Eternal night." She died standing. The end of Chapter 1. For the first hour after the sun vanished, Lumeris clung to denial. Citizens believed it was a power failure. Scientists insisted it was an atmospheric phenomenon. Priests declared it a divine trial. But darkness drew darkness carries weight. This was not the natural night they had known for millennia. This was not the quiet, comforting shadow of sleeping cities. This was a cosmic void. A total absence of light that pressed against skin and bone like a suffocating blanket. Lights across the Hive cities flickered and died. Even glow lamps, chemrunes, and emergency lumens failed one by one as if an unseen force drained them dry. The darkness felt alive, felt aware. And soon felt hungry, too. The first palace in Hive Helios. Millions poured into the streets, desperate for light. Flares ignited in the plazas. Torches were lit. Holy lamps were distributed by the ecclesiarchy, but the flames burned strangely. Small, weak, barely illuminating a meter in any direction. A mother shouted, Why isn't the fire growing? Her torch sputtered, struggling to exist. A priest knelt near the base of a statue of Saint Merovan, holding a lantern high. His voice cracked as he recited prayers. By the Emperor's light, the flame died instantly, as if swallowed. He froze, staring at the Wiccan horror dot all across the hive. Voices rose in a wave of terror. People screamed. Children cried. Sirens wailed. The darkness pressed closer, and the sky above still black, still empty, gave no answer. III. The governor's last command in the upper spire of Hive Helios, the planetary governor, Gaius Morthan, assembled his council. Candles flickered weakly in the chamber, their glow distorted by the unnatural night. Status report. The governor shouted. The master of Vox trembled. All long-range communications have failed. We cannot reach the outer stations or the orbital platforms. What about the black ship? The governor demanded. Is it still in orbit? We do not know, my lord, the master of Vox whispered. Our instruments cannot see past the atmosphere. The air in the chamber turned cold. A scribe approached, clutching a data slate. My lord, the astropathic choir is gone. Gone? Morthan snapped. Do you mean dead? The scribe swallowed. Some dead, some missing, some we cannot identify. Silence. The governor sat slowly, his hands shaking. What is happening to our world? He whispered. No one answered. IV. The underhive howls while the nobles panicked in marble halls. The underhive erupted in chaos. Down where metal walls dripped with condensation, where rusted pipes groaned under crushing pressure. People knew the truth. A world without light was a world already dead. Gangs roamed the tunnels, beating and looting. Filtration pumps failed. Water cisterns cracked. Whole districts plunged into pitch-black confusion. In Sector 39R, a group of underhive residents huddled around a burning barrel. The fire sputtered weakly. Barely alive, a child whimpered, Mama. Why is it dark inside the fire? Her mother pulled her close. I don't know, little one. But she did know. Everyone did. This was not normal. This was not nature. This was the warp. Elsewhere, a gang leader named Brack watched the darkness creep along a corridor. It moved like smoke. Like a living creature, he stepped back, gripping his stub pistol. What in the throne's name? The darkness touched the muzzle of his gun. The weapon froze, cracked, shattered. Brack dropped the pieces, eyes wide. For the first time in 10 years, he felt fear. Real fear. He ran. The ecclesiarchy breaks inside the grand cathedral of Helios. Thousands gathered for refuge. Priests lifted relics, swinging censers heavy with incense, chanting the litany of illumination. The Emperor's light banishes the shadow. The Emperor's light. The candles went out. All of them. Thousands of flames extinguished in a single heartbeat. A collective scream surged through the cathedral. Priests shouted prayers. Choirs cried in panic. People rushed for the doors, trampling each other. The cathedral's sacred stained glass windows shattered as something no one knew what slammed. Against them from the outside, a senior priest. Father Helion fell to his knees. Emperor, why have you forsaken us? His faith had been unshakable for 40 years. Now he could feel something pressing against the edges of reality, something ancient. Something merciless, something that whispered, I am the new knight. Father Helion fainted. He never awoke again. VI. The military collapse as planetary defense forces were Lumera's last hope. They deployed across the hives, tanks rolling through streets, infantry forming barricades, searchlights sweeping the darkness. The searchlights flickered, dimmed, died. To sergeants shouted orders into useless Vox units. Maintain formation. Stay together. Check your weapons. Then a scream cut through the ranks. Something had taken a soldier. Not killed. Taken. Dragged him into the darkness so fast that only his helmet remained. Panic spread. Laskins fired wildly into the void. The beams disappeared. Into the black as if swallowed. Retreat. Someone shouted. Fall back to the inner plazas. But the darkness was everywhere. A lieutenant grabbed a Vox unit and shouted desperately, Orbital command. This is Lieutenant Varros. We require immediate, static." Then a whisper, a voice that was not human, a voice that slithered like cold ink into the lieutenant's skull. All light dies. The lieutenant dropped the Vox unit in terror. This was no ordinary night. This was an entity, a presence. An ENEMYVII, the first mass disappearance be. The end of the first day of eternal night. More than 300,000 people had vanished. Not dead, not found. Simply gone. Whole tenements emptied. Entire hab blocks abandoned. No bodies, no traces. Only darkness. Families searched desperately, calling for loved ones. No answers came. In the mid-hive markets, a young girl named Melia wandered the empty stalls, crying for her sister. "Jun, Jun, where are you?" Her voice echoed weakly. Something moved behind her. She turned but saw nothing. Fear crawled up her spine. The air whispered, "Come closer." Melia ran. VIII. The governor's last address, desperate to regain control. Governor more than broadcast a planet-wide message. Citizens huddled around dim screens. Static crackled. The governor appeared pale, sweating, eyes hollow. "People of Lumeris, we are facing an unprecedented cosmic event. Remain calm. Stay indoors. The Imperial Navy has been notified. Reinforcements will—" A hand touched his shoulder. He turned, but no one was there. Behind him, the shadows stretched unnaturally. The governor froze. His eyes widened. The broadcast cut to black. The people of Lumeris screamed. Order died completely. The night of Ulversby. The second day of eternal night. The dark began to move. Literally. It crawled along walls like ink. Pooled in corners. Stretched across floors. Climbed up buildings. Sometimes it formed shapes. Faces. Eyes. Mouths. Sometimes it whispered in languages older than humanity. But the people soon discovered the most terrifying truth. The darkness was not simply covering the world. It was consuming it. Entire structures began dissolving. Metal, stone, glass, all turning to black dust. A manufacturing tower collapsed after its foundation liquefied into shadow. Priests called it a test of faith. Scientists called it impossible. Everyone else called it what it was. The ENDX Hope Decent. The third night. A lone figure walked through the streets of Hive. Helios, a psyker. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, "They're here. They've come for the soul of the world." Behind her, something massive shifted in the sky. Clouds bent inward. Stars flickered and died. A vast silhouette blotted out the heavens. No engines. No lights. No sound. Just a shape. Watching. Waiting. The psyker fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her face. They have chosen Lumeris for the harvest. And then, with a trembling voice that echoed through the warp, she whispered, "Eternal night is not the end. It is the beginning." By the third rotation of Lumeris under eternal night, people no longer asked why the sun had vanished. They asked if it would ever return. Glow lamps became treasures. Torch oil became currency. 40-watt lumen strips were hoarded like relics. But every artificial light shared the same fate. It dimmed. It flickered. It died. Some citizens swore they saw shapes moving just outside the edge of their failing lamps. Shapes that disappeared the moment the light went out. One factory worker described it best. Darkness isn't the absence of light anymore. It's the presence of something else. Reports like this spread, but no one could confirm them. Anyone who tried didn't return. II. Panic becomes a plague at Hives, drowned in fear. People smashed windows looking for weapons. Crowds trampled each other in refugee lines. The administratum lost control of rationing centers within hours. Arbitrators barricaded precincts rather than patrol the streets. The ecclesiarchy chanted prayers until their voices cracked, begging the emperor to restore light. But the emperor was far away, and the warp was close. In the Underhive, panic had its own language: gunfire, screams, riots. In the Mid-Hive, panic became denial and fanaticism. In the High Spire, the nobles hid in their gilded chambers and pretended the rest of the planet didn't exist. But eternal night did not discriminate. It came for all three. The fear cult awakens and faith falters. Desperation fills the void. By night too. A new cult rose from the lower hive, the children of the true night. They wore masks made of soot and bone. Their eyes were painted black. Their voices whispered rather than spoke. Their creed was simple: do not fear the dark. Become part of it. At first they huddled in abandoned corridors, chanting quietly. But by night 3, they marched openly. They carried banners dipped in black oil. They tattooed sigils on their foreheads. They sang hymns that twisted the Imperial creed into something unsettling. Even more disturbing, the darkness did not seem to touch them. Lights flickered in their presence. Candles guttered low. Shadows bent toward them as though greeting old friends. Some citizens joined them willingly. Others were dragged. The children always went silently. IV, the PDF's first and last offensive line. The command bunker beneath Hive Helios. Senior Marshal Vectanus glared at the holomap. We cannot sit and wait for reinforcements. He barked. We must retake the streets. Around him, the other officers looked hollow-eyed and pale. They had seen soldiers vanish into thin air. They had heard Vox transmissions that devolved into static and screams. They had watched entire districts go black without explanation. Still, they obeyed. The PDF deployed in force, 5 regiments, strong, marching into the darkness with tanks at the vanguard. Spotlights illuminated the streets for mere seconds before, collapsing into flickering cones of dying light. Vectanus. Voice boomed across the Vox. Forward. For the EMP, static. Then the shadows moved. Not the soft, natural shift of darkness. No. These shadows crawled, merged, twisted upward, formed tendrils, limbs, silhouettes. The soldiers opened fire. Lost bolts vanished into the black. Autogun rounds disappeared without ricochet. Grenades went off like muffled coughs. Swallowed whole, the first tank disappeared when a shadow rose beneath it, enveloping the entire chassis in seconds. The screams inside the vehicle lasted 8 seconds. The shadows spat out. Empty armor plates. Not bodies. Just armor. Vectanus tried to rally the troops. Hold your formations. Don't break. But they did. They ran. They fired wildly. They screamed orders no one heard. The PDF offensive collapsed in less than 17 minutes. Only 90 men returned. All of them blind. The whispers begin by night 4. The darkness learned to whisper. No one knew when it began. Some said it came from cracks in the hive walls. Others swore it seeped through the vents. A few said the whispers lived inside their own minds. At first the whispers were faint. Come closer. You're not alone. Let us in. Some ignored them. Others panicked. And some listened. Those who listened longest disappeared within hours. But the most frightening thing was this. The whispers said names, not random words. Not meaningless syllables. Full names. Of living people. Of children hiding under blankets. Of soldiers in command posts. Of priests praying in locked shrines. Kira Holst. Darian Vale. Father Helion. We see you. We hunger. A Vox officer from Hive Helios ran through the streets screaming. They know who we are. They know our names. Then the shadows took him. Vi. The last priest of Helios, Father Dresman, was the last priest still active in the Grand Cathedral. The others had fled or died in the panic. He stood alone before the altar, his trembling hands gripping a half-burned candle. He prayed with all the strength left in his aging soul. Guide us, Emperor. Draw your sword against our enemies. Raise your shield before your children. He froze. Something breathed behind him. Slow, deep, cold. He did not turn. The candle flickered weakly. A voice, ancient and soft as dust, whispered, You called for light. Dresman gripped the aquila pendant around his neck. Show yourself. He shouted, I am a servant of the God Emperor. A low laugh answered, We know. We watched you since your first prayer. On your first day. His heart nearly stopped. The voice continued, We have always been here. Priest. Waiting. The candle died. Dresman's scream echoed only once. The cathedral remained silent afterward. 7. The high spire besieged and the noble spires above the hive. Luxury did nothing to shield the elite from the terror below, Voices echoed from ventilation shafts. Windows turned opaque with crawling black frost. The nobles heard footsteps where no one walked. At dusk, if one could still call the endless black. Dusk, the spire's exterior lights shattered spontaneously. A dozen nobles gathered in a panic chamber, expecting safety, but the shadows seeped through the cracks beneath the door. One noblewoman sobbed. "Why us? We've done nothing." The shadows answered, "But you will." Only two nobles survived. Both had gone mad. Neither would speak again. VIII. The sky opens again the fifth night. The darkness parted, not to reveal light, but to reveal something worse. A tear formed in the sky, a glowing wound of crimson warp fire. Lightning asked. Atmosphere shook. People screamed as gravity itself bent through the tear. A colossal shape descended, a ship, a fortress, a living nightmare. Not Xenos, not Imperial, not anything known. Its hull twisted subtly, as though breathing. Its engines emitted no fire, just a steady, awful hum that resonated in people's bones. A child pointed upward and whispered the last words of her life. "Mom, it sees us." The mother looked up. Inside one of the viewing pits of the ship, a single enormous eye opened and blinked. Everyone in its gaze bled from their nose instantly. The planet's soul trembles deep beneath the surface. In the old planetary reactors, something stirred. A psychic tremor rippled through Lumeris. Every psyker screamed simultaneously. Some exploded. Some fainted. Some began chanting foreign words in unison. One astropath, barely clinging to sanity, gasped, "Lumeris is not being invaded. Lumeris is being claimed." She died seconds later, but her final words echoed in every surviving mind. The night learns your name. Be the end of the fifth day of darkness. The truth became unavoidable. The night was not a phenomenon, not an eclipse, not a freak warp storm. It was an entity with intention, awareness, memory. It whispered to the people. It devoured the lost. It warped the air. It called to those who would betray humanity. And worst of all, it knew each inhabitant of Lumeris, their faces, their thoughts, their hidden sins, their darkest fears. When the whispers grew loudest, everyone heard the same phrase, "We are here. We remember you, and soon you will remember us." The eternal night had begun to feed, and Lumeris had only just begun to fall. By the sixth rotation under eternal night, hope had become a memory. Every Imperial outpost went silent. Every orbital defense platform vanished from aspects. Every attempt to contact nearby systems failed. Lumeris had become a tomb floating in the void, and the darkness was no longer content with whispers. It wanted screams. It wanted prey. It wanted Warii. The fall of the outer Hive Helios had once been a beacon, its towers reaching the clouds, its cathedrals glowing with holy lumen fires, its plazas bustling with millions. Now it was a graveyard of shadows. The outer Hive, the lowest, poorest ring, fell first. It did not fall quietly. A manufacturing overseer named Darren was the first to witness the attack. He was repairing a coolant pipe when he noticed something disturbing. Shadows were dripping from the ceiling, not falling, not spreading, dripping like liquid tar pooling on the floor. Darren stepped back, horrified. The puddle bubbled, hissed, pulled itself upright. And took shape, a humanoid silhouette, made of liquid night. Its face had no eyes, only a gaping void like a wound in reality. Darren screamed. His crew rushed toward him, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. Only his tools remained. The shadows spread outward like a plague. They wrapped around pipes, machinery, and workers, pulling bodies into the darkness. The outer Hive collapsed into panic. Thousands ran in every direction. Thousands disappeared. No one escaped the first onslaught. The failure of Iron and Fire Hive. Helios! Armored division scrambled to respond. Dozens of Lehman Russ tanks rolled into the lower levels, engines roaring. Commander Val shouted through Vox, "All units, fire! Cleanse the shadows!" The tanks unleashed volleys of bolter fire, lost burns. and plasma bursts. The shadows absorbed everything. A shell detonated inside them. The explosion muted, wrapped, smothered. Plasma bolts fizzled like dying sparks. Then the shadows retaliated. They surged forward in a wave, swallowing a tank's treads, creeping up its sides like black fire. Inside, the crew screamed as their instruments froze, their eyes glazed, and their bodies dissolved. Commander Val watched in horror as a tank melted into the ground. As if consumed by acid, he whispered, "Emperor, save us." Then something behind him whispered back, "He cannot hear you anymore." Ivy. Chaos in the mid-hive. Be the next cycle. The mid-hive had become a war zone. Millions attempted to flee upward. Millions more tried to break downward. People trampled each other in stairwells, crushed one another in lifts, fought over elevators and crawl spaces. Arbitrators fired shock malls at desperate crowds. Enforcers deployed tear gas. The PDF formed barriers with riot shields. None of it mattered. Darkness slithered across floors, crawling up boots, swallowing weapons, coiling around throats. A mother clung to her child, shouting, "Don't let the dark touch you. Don't let IT touch." Her voice cut off. The darkness wrapped around her face. Her scream was muffled. She vanished. The child stared at the empty space where his mother had been. Then the darkness took him to in the high spires. A futile sanctuary. Nobles believed themselves protected. After all, they had walls, power, servants, soldiers. But wealth never stopped the warp. Inside the highest spire, the aristocracy gathered around emergency glow orbs. Lord Incanthus, patriarch of the noble houses, slammed his cane onto the marble floor. "We must hold this level," he shouted. "We are the leadership of this world." A servant whispered, "My lord, the leadership of this world is already dead." The nobles panicked. Some screamed. Some prayed. Some ran. The walls darkened. A noblewoman pressed her hand against a window, only to feel something cold pressing back. She recoiled. The window turned black. Then it shattered inward. The shadows poured in like water. The nobles died in silence. Vi. The birth of the first monster Suntal now. The eternal night had taken the form of liquid shadow, formless, shapeless, silent. That changed on the seventh rotation. It began in a quarantine zone where PDF medics had piled bodies of plague victims into heaps for mass burial. But the corpses twitched, moved, stretched, bent, unnaturally. Something inside them awakened. The dead opened their eyes, now black like obsidian. Their bones cracked open, their spines twisted, their limbs elongated, stretching into horrid new proportions. They stood not as men, not as corpses, but as creatures of nightmare. Eyes of void, teeth of shadow, bodies that flickered between flesh and darkness. A single medic screamed, "The shadows are using the dead," and the creatures surged forward, tearing through the lines. Those bitten did not die. They changed. The eternal night had learned to make soldiers. The last command from the governor more than appeared again, but not in person. His face flashed on every working holoscreen in the hive. He looked pale, defeated, hollow-eyed. "This world is lost," he whispered, "but we will resist until the last breath." Behind him, the shadows crept across the walls. He didn't seem to notice. "We have sent word to the Inquisition. If they receive it, they will come." People gasped. No one knew whether to feel relief or terror. The Inquisition did not save worlds. The Inquisition ended them, more than continued. All remaining forces are ordered to fall back to the citadel of Helios. Hold the line. Survive as long as you can. Then he froze. A shadow hand curled around his throat from behind. The broadcast ended. VIII. The siege of the Citadel. PDF and surviving arbitrators retreated to the citadel of Helios, a fortress of ceramite and steel. Inside were 1,000 PDF soldiers minus 800 arbitrators 120. Tech adepts, 30 psychers minus 200,000 refugees. Sealed the gates. They lit every lumen they could find. They prayed. They prepared for war. Captain Varnus addressed the troops. What comes for us is not human nor Xenos. It is the void given form. Stand firm. Hold the line. The Emperor watches. The troops roared in response. But outside the walls, the darkness gathered. Thousands of shadow creatures circled the citadel. Tendrils scraped along the gate. Eyes glowed in the blackness. Voices whispered through cracks in the stone. The eternal night could smell their fear at dawn. Though dawn no longer existed, the shadows attacked. The walls shook. Refugees screamed. Soldiers fired blindly. The darkness seeped through cracks, through vents, through keyholes. Captain Varnus shouted, "Seal every breach. Push them back." But you cannot push back the night. Not forever, Hicks. The last Psyker of Lumerize in the center of the citadel. A lone Psyker, the last one still alive, stepped forward. Her name was Sarai Velin. Her eyes burned with warped luminescence. "The darkness uses the warp," she said, "but I can stall it." She approached the citadel's main gate. The shadow creatures sensed her instantly. They shrieked. Sarai raised both hands, psychic fire flaring like blue suns. She screamed a single word of power, "Enough." A wave of psychic light exploded outward. The darkness recoiled. Monsters disintegrated. The sky rippled as if struck by lightning. For one moment, the citadel stood in absolute clarity, illuminated by Sarai's soul. But sorcery demands payment. Sarai screamed as her flesh burned away. Her body dissolved into energy. Her mind collapsed into the warp. When the light faded, nothing remained of her. But she had bought the citadel a few hours. No more. A world at war with night itself be the end of the 8th rotation. The truth was undeniable. Lumeriz was at war. Not against invaders, not against mutants, not against traitors. But against the night itself. A night that could think. A night that could hunt. A night that could whisper your name. A night that could take your face. A night that would not end. Hive Helios still stood. Barely. But the darkness was learning. It was adapting. And soon, very soon, it would evolve again. The eternal night had not yet shown its full power. Not even close. For the first time in days, the darkness thinned. Not vanished. Not defeated. Just weakened. The death of Inquisitor Septimus created a crack in the eternal night. A momentary fracture in the warp presence suffocating the planet. On the ramparts of the citadel of Helios, Captain Varnus watched the haze shift overhead like dying embers. Captain Volgard of the Crimson Castellans stood beside him, helmet tucked under one arm, golden eyes burning beneath a scarred brow. "This won't last," Volgard said. Varnus nodded. "I know. Then we use it." The Astartes turned. "As soon as the shadows pull back, we strike." Varnus looked at the Psyker girl Sarah lying unconscious under heavy warding circuits. "She's the only reason we have this window." Volgard nodded grimly. "And if she dies, so does your world." 2. Sarai awakens hours later. Sarai jolted upright, gasping. Blue psychic fire flickered around her fingers. Medicae attendants fled in panic. Sarai trembled. I saw it. The night. It is angry." Varnus kneeled beside her. "What is it now?" "It is learning," she whispered. "It is growing." Valgard's jaw tightened. "How long until it returns?" Sarai's voice cracked. "It never left." She pointed toward the darkened horizon. "It's only waiting." 3. The first assault of the Seek like a tidal wave. The eternal night surged back into Hive Helios. No whispers this time. No hesitation. No probing tendrils. War. Pure. Overwhelming. Predatory war. Thousands of creatures shadowburn, corpse mutated. Warp-infused stormed the outer districts. The PDF lit the streets with flamers and promethium torches. The Astartes took the front lines. Captain Valgard's voice roared through Vox. "Costellon's advance. Cleanse every street." Bolters detonated creatures by the dozens. Plasma bolts carved melting holes through shadow beasts. Chainswords ripped through limbs that evaporated into black vapor. But for every creature killed, 3 more crawled out of the darkness. The night was birthing an army. For failure of humanity, Commander. Vectanus tried holding Sector 12 with 1,000 PDF troops. He barely lasted 10 minutes. Last fire blinded the shadows but did not harm them. Grenades detonated harmlessly within the fog. Heavy stubbers went silent as darkness clogged barrels. A shadow beast tore Vectanus from the armored turret of his chimera. His last sight was the creature's mouth, an endless void filled with screaming faces. Sector 12 fell. Then Sector 14. Then Sector 9 amperes. Message crackled through Vox. We're losing the Hive. All sectors collapsing. Civilians gone. Repeat, civilians gone. The message ended in static and shrieks. The Marines make their stand on the southern wall. Sergeant Keller led a squad of 10 astartes. The shadows coiled beneath them like a rising ocean. Keller lifted his relic heavy bolter. Brothers, he growled. If this is where we die, Volgard interrupted over Vox. Then we die in the Emperor's light. The Costellons opened fire. Thunder, flame, wrath. Each bolter shell was a miniature sun in the eternal night. Tearing holes in the darkness, Sarai watched from the battlements. Clutching her head, they're coming faster, learning faster. Volgard, drenched in black blood, shouted, GIRL. If you can hear them, can you stop them? Sarai winced. I can't stop them, but I can slow them. She raised her hands. A shockwave of psychic force burst outward. The darkness recoiled. But Sarai screamed as her nose bled and her eyes flickered. Volgard caught her as she collapsed. She won't last long, Volgard muttered. Neither will we, VI. The night evolves again as the sunless sky churned. Something new emerged from the void. Taller, heavier, stronger. The night birthed titans. Creatures the size of dreadnoughts, made of pure shadow stuff. Armored with fragments of broken metal, bone, and hive debris. They struck the walls. The citadel shook. Volgard roared, target the massive ones. Fire! 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 Crack missiles detonated against the giant creatures. Some staggered. Most did not. One slammed a fist into the southern bastion. The entire tower collapsed. PDF soldiers fell screaming into the blackness. Varnish shouted, We can't hold the citadel. Volgard responded, We're not supposed to hold it. We're supposed to buy time. For what? Varnus demanded. Valgard's silence was answer enough. 7. The Inquisition's true plan deep beneath the citadel, in the sealed vault of judgment. Stormtroopers worked silently around a massive device, a cyclonic torpedo core. Planet killer technology. Inquisitor Septimus had prepared it the moment he arrived. One stormtrooper said, We should arm it. Now. Another replied, No, not until the Astarte signal extraction. Extraction of who? A third asked bitterly. The commander answered, Extraction of the Psycho girl. Everything else dies. No one objected. No one dared. The Imperium saves people, not planets. 8. A plan nitrogen monoxide. 1. Once Valgard gathered his sergeants, Varnus and Sarai, in the war room. The citadel trembled under each impact. Volgard spoke first. The Inquisition's contingency is clear. They will exterminate us this world. Varnus shouted, Nitrogen monoxide. Millions are still alive. Millions are already dead. Volgard roared back. And billions more will die if the night escapes this world. Sarai whispered, It wants to escape. It wants a ship. It wants the warp. Volgard nodded. The Inquisition will not allow that. Varnus turned to the Marines. What do you want us to do? Help you kill our world. Valgard's voice softened. Captain, there are no worlds after this if we fail. Silence. Then Sarai said something that froze them all. There is another way. Her plan, suicidal. Impossible, necessary. Sarai stepped forward, trembling. The night is tied to this planet through emotions, fear, terror, psychic anguish. If we sever its anchor, we can weaken it long enough to escape. Varnus frowned. How do we sever it? Sarai turned toward the heart of the Hive. The core, the planetary reactor. That's where the night is strongest. Volgard understood immediately. A strike force. Sarai nodded. You must escort me there. I can disrupt its connection. Volgard turned to Varnus. Our alternative is to let the Inquisition vaporize your planet. Varnus clenched his fists. This is madness. Volgard placed a gauntleted hand on his shoulder. All victories against the war power. The march into hell gates opened. Astartes advanced. Stormtroopers followed. PDF remnants marched behind. Sarai walked in the center, surrounded by a shield of psychic light. The eternal night shrieked. The ground boiled with shadow. Creatures poured from every alley, but the Marines carved a path with bolters roaring like thunder. Sarai raised her hands. The shadows parted, only slightly, but enough. Varnus shouted, "Keep moving. Do not stop." Buildings melted into darkness around them. Windows turned into eyes. Screaming faces formed in the walls. They reached the edge of the Hive's central chasm. Below them a cavern of pure shadow, a lake of darkness, a luminous vortex pulsing at the bottom. Serai gasped. That is its heart. Volgard activated his sword. Then let us cut it out. Exi the knights. Avatar something rose from the abyss. Something enormous. Something ancient. Something that remembered every death, every scream, every whisper of the last week. A titan of black fire and bone fragments. Eyes like dying stars. Arms stretching like tendrils across city blocks. It spoke without sound, but they heard it. You killed my anchor. Now I will take yours. The creature lunged. Volgard blocked the strike, skidding backward. Costellons, this is our final battle. The Marines charged. Bolters roared. Missiles streaked. Chainswords screamed. The avatar of night swatted them aside like insects. Varnus shouted, Serai. What do we do? Sarai stepped forward. Her eyes glowed pure white. You fight. I sever. She raised both hands toward the vortex. Power surged. The ground split. The entire Hive shook. The avatar shrieked in fury and hurled itself toward her. Volgard tackled it, his armor cracking, bones breaking, but he held. For the Emperor, for humanity. Sarai screamed. Energy exploded outward. A column of white light pierced the darkness. The Hive Helios reactor melted. The vortex ruptured. The avatar convulsed. Everything detonated in blinding brilliance, then silence. The citadel of Helios held through the 8th rotation under eternal night. Barely. Half its soldiers were dead. A third of its walls were compromised. Refugees filled every chamber, praying, sobbing, begging for a miracle. None came. Captain Varnus stood on the ramparts of the citadel, staring into the void beyond the walls. He saw shapes moving, thousands of them, waiting for the darkness to thicken. Again, we won't survive another assault, he whispered. And he was right. But fate had its own design. A thunderous boom split. The sky, a shockwave of light tore through the clouds. People screamed and covered their eyes. For the first time in a week, light touched luminous, weak, artificial, warp-tainted. But light nonetheless. Something was breaking through atmosphere. Not a shadow, not a monster. A ship, a colossal Imperial vessel, punching through the darkness like a spear of holy. Fireei, the Imperial rescue that wasn't a rescueth. Vox towers crackled with static. Then a voice, cold and authoritative, echoed across every frequency. This is Lord Inquisitor Cale Septimus of the Ordo Hereticus. By my authority, this planet is under inquisitorial quarantine. People in the Citadel screamed with joy. The Emperor has heard us. We're saved. The Inquisition is here. But soldiers knew the truth. The Inquisition does not come to save worlds. The Inquisition comes to judge them. Captain Varna swallowed hard. He whispered, Emperor, don't damn us yet. 3. Descent of the black ship through the shadows overhead. A massive silhouette descended. The Inquisition's black ship Obsidian Salvation. Its hull shimmered with psychic wards. Its engines howled like caged demons. Every rivet seemed to pulse with tortured souls of the psychers within. Refugees fell to their knees. Priests collapsed in prayer. Even the darkness recoiled slightly, wary of the ship's psychic. WEIGHTA new voice boomed across Vox. Deploying inquisitorial kill teams. All Imperial forces stand ready for judgment. Judgment, not salvation. Judgment.iv. The Space Marines' arrive months later. Streaks of light tore across the sky, drop pods slamming into the ruined streets like meteor strikes. Each one burst open with hydraulic. Thunder. Warriors stepped out. Not nen.astrtes. Angels of death. Their armor bore the midnight blue and crimson sigils of the Crimson Costellons, a chapter known for brutal, uncompromising purgation campaigns. Refugees whispered in awe, Space Marines. They'll win. They'll save us. But the Marines moved with a coldness that chilled even the priests. They were not here to protect. They were here to cleanse. Their leader, Captain Eternus Volgard, stood taller than any other. His armor covered in purity seals and sanctified prayers. His glowing visor scanned the darkness. Then he spoke. Helios is failing. The corruption is planetary. We do not save infected worlds. We only save the Imperium. The first contact with the night creature screech erupted from the shadows. The Marines raised bolters instantly. From the darkness, dozens of shadow creatures burst forward, shrieking, clawing, twisting. The Astartes opened fire. Bolter. Rounds detonated with holy fury. Explosions lighting the streets. Creatures evaporated in showers of black mist. But more came. Hundreds. Thousands. Captain Volgard activated his relic blade. The weapon hummed with anti-warp energy. He shouted, Costellons, cleanse the night. The Marines waded into the swarm. For the first time since the eternal night began, the darkness faced fear. Vi. The Inquisitor enters the citadel inside the citadel of Helios. Alarms blared as the main gate opened. A figure entered, flanked by a dozen stormtroopers clad in black Carapace armor. Lord Inquisitor Cale Septimus. His skull-faced helmet glowed faintly. His cloak shimmered with runes of banishment. His presence alone made psychers faint. Refugees knelt instinctively. Septimus' voice was calm. To calm, bring me your commander. Captain Varnus approached, saluting. My lord, thank the Emperor you arrived. We can mount a counterattack with your aid. If we coordinate with... Septimus raised a hand. No, Varnus froze. The Inquisitor continued, your world is already lost. Your population is already doomed. Your defenses are meaningless. We are not here to turn back the dark. The room fell silent. Stormtroopers raised their weapons. Septimus removed his helmet, revealing cold, tired eyes. We are here to make sure nothing leaves this planet. Gasps spread across the hall. Varnus stammered. My lord, you mean to exterminate us? Septimus replied, if necessary. 7. The darkness strikes again suddenly. The citadel shook violently. People screamed. Pillars cracked. Lights flickered. A storm of shadows slammed against the walls. Creatures poured in from cracks in the stone. Varnus shouted, to arms. Stormtroopers and refugees scattered as the darkness surged. Septimus remained calm. He drew a long, thin blade etched with hexagrammatic wards, dripping with psychic fire. The shadows recoiled, but they attacked in waves. The citadel was collapsing. VIII. A psyker who should not exist. A sudden blast of blinding blue light erupted from the inner sanctum. Everyone turned. A young girl, no more than 15, walked forward, eyes glowing like miniature suns. She was a latent psyker. Awakened by the night. Both Marines and Inquisitorial stormtroopers raised their weapons. Septimus shouted, stop. She is the reason the night has not fully consumed this planet. The girl whispered, it wants me, and it wants him. She pointed at Septimus. Varnus stared. Why you? She answered, because he made it. Silence fell. Septimus froze. The shadows outside screamed. The eternal night shuddered as if struck. Captain Volgard voxed Inquisitor. What does she mean? Septimus answered without emotion, a long time ago. I made a mistake. The Inquisitor's synth citadel trembled, walls cracking as shadows clawed their way inside. Septimus spoke quickly. Too quickly for an Inquisitor. 25 years ago, I was tasked with purging a cult on the planet Varaxis 4. They worshipped a creature of the warp known only as the Sleeper in the Black. He swallowed hard. I killed the cult, but I did not kill the sleeper. Volgard roared over Vox. You brought this thing here. Septimus shouted back. No. It followed me. The girl nodded. It marked you. It waited, and when your ship passed near Lumeris, it woke. The citadel shook violently. A massive shadow hand tore through the outer wall. Hundreds were dragged screaming into the void. Captain Varnish shouted, What do we do? The girl whispered, You must kill him. Everyone froze. Septimus looked at her with no fear. Only ACCEPTANCEX, the choice that decides a world. Shadows poured into the citadel. Astartes and stormtroopers fought side by side. Refugees fled deeper into the fortress. Septimus stepped forward. Removing his cloak, I cannot kill it, he said. But if I die, its anchor to this world dies too. The girl nodded. The night will weaken. For a time, Volgard shouted, Then we strike while it falters. Varna stared. You're asking us to? I am not asking, Septimus said. I am telling you. The citadel's roof collapsed as shadow tentacles crashed downward. Volgard lifted his bolter. Inquisitor. For the Imper, Septimus raised a hand. No, for Lumeris. He knelt. The girl touched his forehead. Her eyes blazed. Septimus whispered, Emperor, protect my soul. A flash of white light consumed him. Then the night screamed, a scream that shattered stone, a scream that echoed across the planet, a scream of rage and fear. For the first time, the night recoils, the darkness retreated. Not fully, not permanently, but enough. Citizens crawled from hiding. Crews sealed breaches. The Marines pushed the creatures back. The citadel stood battered but alive. Varnas gasped. We won? Volgard answered. No, we merely bought time. The psychic girl collapsed, exhausted. Volgard lifted her in his arms. She is our only key to stopping this. Protect her at all costs. Outside the walls, the eternal night shuddered. And somewhere in the sky, something enormous shifted. A second tier in reality began to form. This was not over. Not even close. Lumeris had been spared from annihilation, but the war for its soul had only begun. The explosion of the Helios core was visible across half the planet. A blinding column of white energy burst from the Hive's heart, ripping open the sky, punching a hole through the eternal night. For a single, impossible moment, light existed again. Weak, wounded, dying, but light nonetheless. The ground trembled. Buildings crumbled. The core's shockwave blasted away creatures of shadow, dissolving their bodies into drifting black dust. PDF survivors crawled from the rubble. Astartes rose from shattered streets. Refugees stared upward, weeping. Captain Varnus stood on trembling legs, coughing dust from his lungs. We did it, he whispered. But Captain Volgard did not celebrate. His armor was crushed and burning. His left pauldron was gone. His ribs were cracked. He looked not at the survivors, but at the sky, because the night was not gone. It was moving, slowly, deliberately. Angrily. II. Saroi's Princessrai lay collapsed in a crater of cracked stone. Her small frame trembled violently. Her eyes flickered with fading psychic fire. Blood streamed from her nose and ears. Varnus rushed forward. Sarai, stay with us. She blinked weakly. I severed the anchor, but not the night. Volgard knelt beside her. What remains? Her voice cracked. The night has no anchor now, so it will create one. A chill went through every soldier present. What does that mean? Varnus whispered. Sarai's eyes turned upward. It means it is coming here. 3. The night adapts. Eternal night recoiled from the explosion, but then it surged inward, condensing around Hive Helios like a storm collapsing around an eye. Shadow tendrils stabbed into the Hive's remains. Creatures reformed from drifting mist. New horrors assembled themselves from scorched debris. And in the sky the clouds twisted into a spiral. Captain Volgard muttered, It's concentrating. Learning how to strike again. Varna swallowed. Can we outrun it? Volgard shook his head. No one outruns the warp. 4. the retreat to high ground refuse. Followed the Astartes and PDF deeper into the upper districts, the last intact bastions of Helios. The climb was brutal, broken stairs, collapsed platforms, dead bodies, rubble and fire everywhere. Children cried. Men screamed. Officers barked orders to keep civilians moving. The night crept upward behind them like a rising ocean of black tide. Volgard voxed. Sergeant Keller status of the inner walls. Static. Then Keller's strained voice, barely holding. The night is reassembling. Some kind of new form. What form? Volgard demanded. Keller hesitated. Humanoid. Volgard froze. Humanoid. That meant intelligence. That meant memory. That meant purpose. That meant the worst possible thing. The night was evolving towards sentience. The humanoids of night first emerged near the cathedral steps, tall as space marines, bodies shaped like liquid obsidian, faces smooth and eyeless, hands ending in clawed blades. They walked in formation. They coordinated attacks. They mimicked tactics. They targeted leaders first. Volgard roared, Costellons. These are the night's new soldiers. Engage. Bolters tore holes through the humanoids, but the wounds closed instantly. Chainswords cut limbs, but shadows reformed. Plasma burned chunks away, but the creatures adapted to heat. What are these things? Varnis shouted. Serai gasped. They're learning from you, from your fear, from your minds. Volgard snarled. Then let them learn death. The Marines charged into the fray. The clash shook stone. Vi. The message from the Inquisition of Vox distress signal crackled to life on all surviving PDF helmets. This is the Obsidian Salvation. All surviving Imperial leadership, respond now. Volgard open channel, Obsidian Salvation. This is Volgard. Hive Helios is collapsing. The night is adapting. The reply chilled every heart. We are preparing cyclonic exterminatus. Varnis screamed. No. You can't. Millions are still alive. The Inquisition officer responded coldly. If the night entity leaves this world, entire sectors will fall within months. Exterminatus is not a choice. It is mercy. Volgard clenched his jaw. How long? 3 hours. Serai whispered. They're going to kill everyone. Volgard looked at her. No. We are not done fighting yet. The final plan. Volgard ordered a tactical withdrawal to the highest spire, the Aquila Bastion, a fortress rising above the Hive like a broken sword, inside the shattered command chamber. Volgard turned to Serai. You said the night needs a new anchor. Where will it go next? Serai pointed directly at the bunker floor. Here, where the psychic echo is strongest, where Septimus died, where I unleashed the severing. Varnis paled. So it will come for you? Serai nodded. Yes, if I fall, it wins. Volgard slammed a fist against his chest plate. Then we defend you with our lives. Serai shook her head. No, there is something else I can do. Everyone turned. Serai whispered. If I reverse the severing, if I open myself to the night, I can trap it, bind it, hold it long enough for you to escape. Varnis shouted. No, that is suicide. Serai smiled sadly. So is staying on this planet. 8. The night makes its movie. A bone-shaking roar echoed across the upper spires. The night's humanoid army marched upward in disciplined lines. Behind them, the avatar of night reformed. Bigger, faster, infused with fury. It crawled up the Hive walls like a living storm. Volgard activated his helm. Castellans, this is our last wall. We hold until the girl is done. PDF soldiers formed firing lines. Stormtroopers set up heavy bolters. Civilians took shelter behind ruined pews. The sky split again. Lightning of black fire rained down. The final battle for Helios began. IX. The cost of war bolters roared. Plasma cannons shrieked. Las fire filled the air with red beams. Each marine held back a wave of shadow humanoids. Volgard cut through them like a living tempest, his blade glowing with holy radiance, but even he could not hold forever. One by one, Castellan marines fell. Brother Theman dragged into a wall of shadow. Sergeant Keller split in half by a night blade. Brother Morix overrun by 5 humanoids at once. Volgard roared their names until his throat bled. Varnus PDF held the stairs, firing until their rifles overheated, then swinging them like clubs. Black fire poured from the sky. Creatures smashed against the barricades. The knight pressed in. The defenders broke. Sarai screamed, "It's here!" Sarai confronts the ninth avatar of night towered before her. Filling the entire cathedral space, it whispered, "Little light, you severed me once. Now I sever you." Sarai stood alone, her hair lifted by psychic wind. Her eyes blazed white. Her feet left the ground. "You cannot take this world," she said. Her voice echoed like thunder. The knight laughed. "It is already mine." Sarai reached deep into the warp. Past pain, past fear, past humanity. She touched something older. A spark, a single thread of holy light. She screamed, "By the Emperor, begone!" White fire erupted from her body. The knight recoiled, shrieking. Volgard roared, "NOW! Push them back!" Walls shook. Creatures evaporated. The avatar staggered. Sarai poured every ounce of her life into the blast. Her body cracked with psychic strain. Blood poured from her eyes. Volgard shouted, "Serai! Stop, you'll die!" She whispered, "I know," and unleashed a final, impossible burst. A wave of purified light swept across Helios. Creatures dissolved. Shadows ripped apart. The avatar split open. For a moment, a heartbeat, the eternal night died. Then Sarai collapsed, unmoving. When Sarai unleashed her final blast, the world of Lumeris froze for 7 full seconds. Everyone, PDF soldiers, Astartes, stormtroopers, refugees, cultists, even the shadow creatures were stunned by a light they had not seen in days. White, pure, holy, a light not born from the sun, a light dragged screaming from the warp by a mortal mind. But as quickly as it came, it vanished. Captain Volgard fell to one knee, panting, his sword crackling with fading radiance. Varnish shielded his eyes, weeping openly. Refugees crawled from hiding, staring upward, whispering, "Is it over? Did we win? Did the girl save us?" But Volgard knew the truth. He always knew. He rose slowly and looked toward Sarai. She lay still, her body smoking, her arms twisted unnaturally, her eyes open but lifeless, glowing faintly with dying embers of psychic light. Varnus knelt beside her and pressed his ear to her chest. Nothing. No. He whispered. No, no, Emperor, no. Volgard placed a gauntleted hand on Varnus' shoulder. "She saved us," Volgard said quietly, "and the Emperor shall know her name." Varnus sobbed. She was just a child. Volgard's voice turned cold. "In war, there are no children." 2. A short-lived Victride white blast had destroyed tens of thousands of shadow creatures. The avatar was torn apart. Entire swarms evaporated. And yet, the eternal night did not die. It recoiled, fell back, regenerated. The clouds spiraled outward, forming a vortex around the hive. Varnus, wiping tears, looked at Volgard. "Why isn't it gone?" Volgard answered, "Because she did not kill it." He pointed upward. "She only forced it to retreat." 3. The night's true form reveals itself. Clouds condensed. Darkness folded in on itself. A colossal shape took form overhead, not a creature, not a storm, not anything mortal. A continent-sized void, a cosmic abyss, a hole in reality itself. Where it floated, stars disappeared, lights died, voices went silent. The eternal night had not been defeated. It had been awakened. Varnus gasped, "Throne. What is that?" Volgard whispered, "I think that was always the real enemy. The humanoid creatures, the avatar, the shadows, all were fragments, shards, echoes of the true entity. And now, the true entity looked down upon Lumeris and spoke not through words, but through gravity itself. The ground trembled, the air convulsed. Every living mind felt a single, horrifying message. I am inevitable. Ivy, The Inquisition's countdown vox units crackled. The voice of the Obsidian Salvation echoed. All Imperial forces respond. Exterminatus protocols will commence in 90 minutes. Volgard opened a channel. This is Captain Volgard. We still have forces alive. We can still fight. The reply came instantly. There is no fight left. The night has become planetary. If it leaves this world, the segmentum obscurus will fall. Varnus shouted into the vox. You will kill millions of survivors. The reply was colder. We will save trillions of others. Silence. Varnus looked at Volgard. Can we stop Exterminatus? Volgard shook his head. We are not fighting to stop it. We are fighting to survive it. Varnus blinked. Survive. Exterminatus? Volgard pointed to the sky. We need to reach the Obsidian Salvation. And if we do not leave this planet, no one ever will. The night rises again. Eternal night descended in waves. New horrors formed. Shadow serpents the size of gunships, humanoid giants wielding weapons made of bone and darkness. Swarming shadow swarms that moved like locusts. Floating spectres shaped like the dead of Lumerisan from the center of the vortex. A new avatar formed, larger, stronger, more aware. The night had learned from its defeat. Volgard lifted his sword. Costalons on me. The last surviving Marines, now fewer than 20, roared in unison. The final battle for Lumeris began. Vi. The final evacuation while the Astartes held the line. Varnus coordinated the evacuation. Hundreds of civilians rushed toward the only functioning elevator shaft that still reached the upper docking. Platforms, the sky darkened further. Creatures crawled along walls and ceilings. Refugees screamed. Stormtroopers fired volleys. Into the black tide, Varnus shouted, Move! Move! Get to the platform! A woman carrying 2 children tripped. Varnus rushed forward, grabbing the younger child before a shadow tendril seized her. Don't stop, run. Everyone ran. Everyone except Varnus. He held the rear line, firing until his rifle overheated, then switching to his sidearm. Come on, you filth. You want me. Come take me. The shadows obliged. Volgard saw Varnus engulfed. No, Volgard roared. But Varnus wasn't gone. The shadows pulled back, revealing him still alive, standing, shaking. Seroy's dying blast had marked him. Volgard realized. The night is afraid of him. 7. The night speaks again. The avatar turned toward the Astartes, toward Varnus. Toward the sky, a voice ancient, layered, bottomless echoed across the hive. You killed my children. You severed my anchor. You stole my prey. The clouds pulsed. Now, I will steal yours. The shadows attacked again. Volgard shouted, Fall back. Protect the elevator shaft. Behind him, civilians cried and prayed as the Astartes fought like demigods. Each Marine sacrificed his life to buy seconds. One by one, they fell. Brother Kalix torn apart by serpents. Brother Jorik swallowed by living smoke. Brother Tarvik cut down by shadow humanoids. Valgard's voice broke as he shouted, Brothers, we hold until all are safe. But deep down he knew none were safe. VIII. The last ascent. Evacuation platform rose slowly to slowly. Varnus and the surviving PDF pushed civilians onto the platform. A child tugged Varnus's cloak. Mister, will the lights come back? Varnus knelt, tears streaming down his face. Yes, he lied. Somewhere. As the platform ascended toward the upper spire, the night surged upward. Varnus looked down. Volgard stood alone on the final stair, surrounded by thousands of creatures. Go. Volgard roared. Get them to the ship. Varnus shouted back. Come with US. Volgard smiled sadly. This is where I die. The platform rose. Varnus watched the last Marine of the Crimson Castellans raise his sword and charge into an ocean of darkness. The creatures swallowed him whole. One last burst of blue light erupted, then he was gone. The final truth of the night. As the survivors reached the docking platform, Serai's voice echoed in Varnus's mind. He froze, She was dead, but her voice whispered anyway. I see it now. The night is not one thing. It is many. Varnus gasped. It is every fear ever felt, every scream ever heard, every shadow cast by every dying world. Varnus staggered, gripping his head. Sarai's voice faded. It is older than chaos, older than humanity, and it cannot be killed. The final whisper nearly broke him. It only sleeps until it finds another world. The exterminatus countdown. Obsidian Salvation opened its docking bay. Stormtroopers pulled survivors inside. A mechanized voice boomed. Exterminatus in 8 minutes. Varnus shouted, we need more time. There are still crowds below. No, the Stormtrooper commander said. We have our orders. If the night reaches orbit, every star system around us dies. Varnus trembled. And what about us? The commander stared at him. We die in the Emperor's name. The light that devours a world cyclonic torpedo detonated with the fury of a dying star. From orbit, the Obsidian Salvation watched as the planet below ignited not with light, but with obliteration. A sunburst tore through the mantle. Shockwaves crashed across the crust. Entire continents folded in on themselves. The atmosphere boiled away. What had been luminous became ash in the void. The eternal night shrieked as it collapsed, its essence unraveling across the warp dot on the bridge. An inquisitorial officer crossed himself. May the Emperor forgive us. Another whispered, may he never know, for a full minute. No one spoke. Then the Watchmaster said, begin post-exterminatus protocols. Log the planet as cleansed. But cleansing was not the right word. There was no world left to cleanse. 2. The girl who would not die in the Medicae Bay. Sarai's corpse still glowed faintly. Stormtroopers stood guard, unsettled. One whispered, is she truly dead? Another replied, I hope so. I pray so. The glow pulsed, then stopped, then pulsed again. A third stormtrooper backed away. That's warp energy. She should be scorched away after exterminatus. One officer said, the Inquisitor wants her body preserved. 4. Study. But they were wrong. Sarai's body twitched. Her eyes opened. Not fully. Just a flicker. A faint breath. A whisper no mortal voice could hear. Thank you. Varnus, you saved them. A single tear rolled down her cheek. It glowed like starlight. And then her body lost its glow completely. She was gone. But her soul was not. 3. The Inquisitor Aravesa thunderous impact shook the ship. Vox officers scrambled. The Inquisitorial flagship is docking. Stormtroopers formed ranks. A new figure entered the Obsidian Salvation. Inquisitor Maranth, stern, young, but terrifying in focus. She surveyed the damage. How many survived? Just under 8,000, the Watchmaster said. Children, civilians, scattered PDF remnants, and the Astartes? None. Maranth nodded. Good. The fewer complications, the better. She walked to the Medicae Bay and looked at Sarai's body, a psycho child who severed a warp entity. She murmured, such power should not exist. What should we do with her body? A trooper asked. Maranth did not hesitate. Purge it. The trooper blinked. But Inquisitor Septimus indicated, Septimus is dead, Maranth snapped. And his judgment died with him. She looked at the corpse. No psycho with this potential can be allowed to exist. Not even dead. She turned. Burn it. And do not record her name. The stormtroopers obeyed. No one dared ask why. IV. What the Imperium remembers due days later. The survivors were processed. Decontaminated, interviewed, monitored. All were forbidden to speak of the eternal night Sarai, Valgard's corruption, Varnus's sacrifice, the planetary anomaly. The psychic phenomenoniac survivors signed a decree. The events of Lumeris are classified ordo secretum. All violations are punishable by death. To the Imperium, the official record stated, Lumeris fell to chaos cult heresy and was cleansed by exterminatus. Not one mention of the night. Not one mention of the truth, not one mention of the child who saved them, and so, as all things in the Imperium do, the truth was buried. What the Imperium hides, but the truth does not die, because aboard the Obsidian Salvation, alone in the quiet of the Librarium deck, a machine spirit terminal flickered, a hidden file unlocked itself, a message recorded by Volgard, not corrupted Volgard, but the man he was before the night. His voice was ragged. Whoever finds this, listen, static. Then the night is not a phenomenon, not a warp storm, not a creature. A pause. It is a memory, more static, a memory of every death in the warp, a shadow cast by the souls of the damned, a wound that forms when too much suffering gathers in one place. Another pause. Softer, broken. It is older than chaos because it created chaos. It is older than humanity because it remembers humanity before it walked, and it is not gone. The next words froze the machine spirit. It cannot die. It can only move. The recording ended, and the file locked itself again, hiding deep in the ship's archives. Waiting.vi. What happened to Valgard far from the ship? Drifting in the void, a broken suit of Astartes armor floated. Inside was a body, or what remained of one. The skull was cracked, the chest plate shattered, the gauntlets fused with molten rock. But the eyes still glowed. Faintly. A whisper escaped the mouth. You cannot kill the night. The armor drifted into the warp. It did not drift alone. What happened to Seradip inside the Imperium? A small spark drifted. Serai. But not as a ghost, not as a soul, not as a demon. As something new. Something pure, something the warp had never seen before. A light. Seri floated through storms of chaos untouched. Demons recoiled. Warp currents shattered. Her presence was like a memory of innocence in a realm of nightmares. She whispered, Varnus, you saved the galaxy. Her spark pulsed. But the galaxy will need saving again. She drifted onward, into endless cosmic night. VIII. The final report of the Inquisition. Months later, Inquisitor Maranth filed her report. Ordo Xenos and Ordo Malus joint summary subject. World Lumeris final status. Purge. The threat has been neutralized. No warp anomalies detected in the aftermath. No entities remain that pose a significant risk to the Imperium. At the bottom, written in her own hand, recommend sealing all records permanently. Knowledge of this entity could destabilize the Imperium. Approved. Sealed. Buried. 9. The very last Pagaeas later. On a distant frontier world, a child awoke screaming. Her mother rushed in and asked, What is it? The girl pointed at the window. At the sky, the mother saw nothing, just stars. The girl whispered, Something is coming. Her eyes glowed faintly, the same color as Serai's, the same color as the light that saved Lumeris, the same color as the spark drifting through the warp. The girl spoke one final word before falling back asleep. Night. The doors that closed on a world docking bay of the Obsidian Salvation sealed shut, with a metallic finality that echoed through every heart aboard. Outside the viewport, Hive Helios burned, its towers collapsing into the darkness, its last flame smothered by an ocean of shadow. Varna slammed his fists against the glass. There are still people down there, he shouted. A stormtrooper commander replied coldly, They are already dead, Captain. Varnus turned, fury burning in him. You don't know that. The commander's expression didn't change. The Inquisition does. A klaxon blared. Exterminator's countdown, 6 minutes. The words chilled the blood of every survivor. Children cried. Mothers prayed. PDF soldiers stared at the floor in despair. Varnus looked at the void outside and whispered, Emperor, forgive us. 2. The night's last breath down below. The eternal night surged like a living ocean around the ruins of Helios. It felt the ship leaving. It felt prey escaping. It felt its anchor severed. It screamed. A psychic howl so powerful that even orbit shook. On the bridge of the Obsidian Salvation, instruments flickered. The helmsman muttered, Sir, something is rising from the planet. The Inquisitorial Watch Master stepped forward. Identify. The helmsman's voice cracked. I can't. It's not a signal. It's not energy. It's not A psychic wave crashed against the ship. Dozens of weaker crew dropped dead on the spot, blood pouring from their eyes. The night whispered into every mind aboard. You think you can leave. You think you can kill. Me? You think I am, bound to one world. Then something enormous rose. Through the atmosphere, a column of darkness stretching. From the planet to orbit, Sarai had called it a truth. The night was not a creature. It was a phenomenon, a cosmic wound, a living void. And it was furious. Valgard's last message a week. Broken Vox signal crackled to life. Ard. Volgard. Helios. Respond. Varnus froze. That's not possible. He's dead. The signal strengthened. Varnus. Listen. It was Volgard. Barely conscious. Barely alive. Pinned somewhere in the ruins. Varnus grabbed the Vox. Volgard. Emperor alive, you survived. But Valgard's voice was wrong. Warp corrupted. Distant. Cold. No. Varnus. I didn't survive. Silence. Then. It took me. Varnus felt his heart plummet. The marine continued. The night. It took my mind. My body. My memories. Another pause, and now it wants yours. Varnus whispered. Brother. Emperor, protect your soul. Volgard spoke a final time. Stop the night from reaching orbit. Kill me. Kill the planet. Kill everything. The signal ended. Varnus collapsed to his knees. The stormtrooper commander approached slowly. This is why Exterminatus exists. 4. The last survivor speaks truth inside the Medicae bay. A weak psychic pulse flickered. Sarai's body still lay there, wrapped in cloth. But the cloth glowed faintly. A stormtrooper shouted, Sir. We're detecting. Varnus ran into the room. Sarai's body rose an inch from the table. Her eyes snapped open. Not white. Not human. Filled with visions. She spoke in a voice layered with millions of echoes. You must fire the cyclonic torpedo. Varnus shook his head violently. No. You're alive, Sarai. We can find another way. She screamed. Psychic lightning arcing across the walls. There is nitrogen monoxide other way. Stormtroopers fell back. Sarai's glowing eyes fixed on Varnus. It's using Volgard as a conduit. Soon it will reach you. Then the crew. Then the ship. Then the void. Varnus stepped back. No. No. Sarai, she whispered. I saw planets fall. I saw entire sectors consumed. If Lumeris lives, the galaxy dies. Her face contorted with pain. The night is trying to board the ship even now. The crew froze. And then the lights dimmed. The night enters. The sheep. A scream traveled through every corridor at once. Voices, whispers. Curses not human echoed along steel walls. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Shadows began merging into humanoid shapes aboard the vessel. One stormtrooper opened fire. Contact. But his last fire evaporated. The shadows tore him apart. Dozens of creatures manifested simultaneously. The night had infiltrated the ship. Varnus grabbed a bolt pistol from a fallen trooper. We need to reach the bridge. Move! Survivors ran. Creatures pursued. Corpses dissolved. Shadows thickened. The ship was becoming an extension of the eternal night. VI. Sarai's final commensura floated from the Medicae table, feet no longer touching the floor. Psychic fire poured from her palms. She was dying, but she was not gone. Varnus, she said softly, you must hear this. He turned back. Her expression was no longer human, more spirit than flesh, more warp than matter. But still Sarai, you must launch the Exterminatus manually. Varnus's eyes widened. What? Why? The system must have an automated. Sarai shook her head. The night has infected the machine spirit. It is delaying the firing sequence. Varnus realized the truth. The Exterminatus torpedo would not fire. Not unless someone triggered it from inside. From the planet. From the surface. From the Hive. He whispered, he who triggers it won't survive. No one will. Sarai whispered, that is the purpose. Varnus trembled. We came here to save lives. Serai touched his forehead. He felt calm. You came here to save humanity. 7. The Choice in the bridge. The Watchmaster shouted, enemy presence inside the hull. Shields collapsing. We need exterminatus now. Varna strode in, drenched in blood and ash. I'll go. The room fell silent. Even the Inquisition's officers stared. The Watchmaster spoke. Captain, you cannot expect to survive. I know, Varnus replied. Serai drifted behind him, faintly glowing. He must go, she said. He is the last untainted soul the night cannot touch. A stormtrooper objected. We can send a squad. No. Serai whispered. If multiple minds go, the night will take one of them. Varnus swallowed. So it has to be me. She nodded. Double quotes, yes. Varnus looked out the viewport at his dying world. He whispered, when we were children, we prayed the sun would rise. Serai whispered back, today you must make it set. The final disenchanted drop shuttle was prepared. Stormtroopers saluted him. Refugees wept. Even hardened inquisitorial officers bowed. As Varnus entered the shuttle, Serai placed a hand over his heart. You are brave, she said, softly. He smiled weakly. No, I am afraid. That is why you can do this. The shuttle launched. The obsidian salvation shrank behind him. Lumerus loomed below. A planet split between ruined cities and endless shadow. As he descended, the eternal night surged upward. Creatures rode the wind. Tendrils rose like spears. The vortex spiraled violently. Valgard's corrupted voice echoed across Vox. Join me, Varnus. Join the night. Varnus shut the channel. No more lies. He pointed the shuttle toward the Citadel ruins, where the exterminatus trigger lay beneath stone. And ash.ix. One man against a world. Shuttle crushed into the ruins. Varnus crawled out, bleeding, armored only by determination. Shadow creatures closed in instantly. He fired his bolt pistol with perfect precision. Every shot was a prayer. Every step was agony. The ground itself tried to swallow him. Valgard's corrupted form appeared in the mist. His armor twisted. His eyes hollow. Brother, he said softly, why fight? The night is peace. Varnus fired again. Valgard staggered. You disappoint me. The corrupted marine lunged. The two men, one a titan of enhanced flesh, the other a mortal, fought in the rubble. Varnus stabbed, punched, screamed, bled. Valgard lifted him by the throat. You cannot stop the night. Varnus choked. I can't. He pointed the bolt pistol upward, aimed into Valgard's helmet and fired. The marine fell. Varnus collapsed beside him. Gasping. Then he crawled the last few meters toward the activation shrine, Hex. The last words of a world. Placed his hand on the exterminatus relic. It asked for identification. Captain Marcus Varnus. He whispered. Planetary Defense Forces of Lumeris. Authorization. Personal sacrifice. The machine spirit acknowledged. Exterminatus manual trigger accepted. A moment later the night froze. It screamed. It surged toward him in a tidal wave of hatred. Varnus whispered. For Serai. He pressed the final rune. A blinding, sun-sized beam of energy erupted downward from orbit. Everything vanished. The night tore. The hive shattered. The planet cracked. Lumerus died. And with it, the eternal night screamed its last.